All right, all right, all right. Our favorite Texas fans, favorite words, huh? Welcome back, everybody. Saturday Sensei, coming out of week 5. Some incredible games, incredible highlights, amazing individual performances. We'll get to all that before we get started. Again, thanks for tuning in. I don't know how many of you caught us last week on one of the biggest podcasts in the country on fantasy football, but Dynasty Warzone. So shout out to Randy and Jerry for having us on as guest hosts. Mark and I love that. And I guess without further ado, speaking of my co-hosts in in a city that is in its own form under siege with the mayor being indicted on federal charges. We were just talking before we went live here, folks. We got missiles flying around the Mideast. We got ports shutting down on the East Coast. But hey, they ain't shutting us down, baby.
No, sir, Andy. Saturday Samurai continues.
Saturday Sensei. Got it.
Saturday
Sensei. We're not samurais quite yet. But we gotta wait till the dollars start flowing in before we get that time.
It's been an eventful week to say the least.
Yeah, indeed, man. So, well, we're welcome again. We're glad everybody's back again. Like, subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcast, etc. All your favorite channels. We're out there now. Share the love, share the passion. We appreciate you having you, appreciate you listening. So, let's get started, man. Week 5 recap. Team performances, good, bad, ugly, and of course the infamous, the fugly. Let's start in reverse order today. Let's do something a little different. We always start with the good. Let's finish with that. Let's start with the big fugly for the week of week 5. What'd you have there?
Andy, I got so much fugly, I don't know what to do, Andy. I don't know what to do, but if I give this team the big fugly, they get the kiss of death. It will be the 3rd fugly award of the season, and we're only in week 5.
I know. I think we might have to come up with a fugly MVP of the year. We'll send them a award. And I think I know where it's going. I think it's going down south.
I think so because for Florida State to lose to SMU 42-16.
Yeah, not just lose. They got pummeled.
Yeah.
Absolutely pummeled.
In every facet of the game.
I know.
So obviously that was one for me. James Madison beating Ball State 63-7. Is Ball State in Division I?
I think JMU's the real deal, my friend.
I know, and I know you've been touting them, and I think we'll hear a little more at the dichotomy in the pretenders and contenders session. Yep. Later, Stanford losing to Clemson 40-14. This is insane stuff. And my boys from Staten Island that go down south and get crushed.
I know. On last week's show, I said I was gonna be a temporary. What were they from, the Bronx or Brooklyn? Where are they from? What borough? Staten Island. I was going to be a temporary Staten Island resident to cheer on Wagner, and they got pounded by the Owls of Florida Atlantic.
Yeah. So Andy, if I had to give one fugly award, I don't know what to do, but at this point, it's Florida State losing to SMU the way that they did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I actually didn't have. I had a game, but I didn't have a team. My award goes out to the head official and referee in that Virginia Tech Miami game. The fact that they overturned that Hail Mary on Virginia Tech, I thought was unjust and incorrect. The call on the field was a touchdown, which would have given Virginia Tech the victory down in Coral Gables. They went to review and came back and said there was enough evidence to overturn it. I have viewed multiple angles of that video, real time in slow-mo. And I know I wear the spectacles, everybody, but it sure didn't seem like to me it was clear-cut and definitive enough to overrule it. Now, had they called that incomplete, right, to begin with, and then had to confirm that call, perhaps that would have been a bit easier to swallow. But it's got to be clear evidence to overturn the call on the field, and I didn't think that happened, and I thought the Hokies got robbed. Little home field call for the Canes, and it keeps them undefeated. So that was mine for the week. How about the ugly?
There was a lot of good, but there was a lot of ugly, Andy. Um, Houston, Houston losing to Iowa State, shutout 20-0. It looked like futility.
Yeah,
Illinois just getting 7 points up in Happy Valley in State College,
yeah,
and Illinois was a big team. They looked horrible. But you know what? If I had to pick the ugliest game, it's Auburn letting that win slip away when they
yeah,
were ahead in Oklahoma. I
yeah,
thought sure they were going to win.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. That game. I was out east again, and no home games in at Navy Marine Corps, so I didn't get to go to a game this weekend. But my son and I were talking about it Saturday morning, and he was looking at the game and looking at the line, and Oklahoma was getting a point and a half. And it wasn't until I think game day, they went through all the games, but um, they started the freshman quarterback, which they pulled him in last week, and all their top five receivers were all out of the game, which didn't make sense to me why it was so close, but still, I thought for sure, the Sooners would have pulled it out, and to your point, their backs were against the wall virtually the entire game. So yeah, having Auburn let that slip away was
It
they
was
had their
ugly.
opportunity.
It was
Yeah,
ugly, my friend.
yeah, yeah. Well, my award goes to the Red Hawks down in Oxford, which I'm sure my youngest son's too busy to be listening to Saturday Sensei, so he may not be hearing this. But they had to go to overtime on a rainy, ugly, nasty day in Oxford to beat the Minutemen 23-20 on a field goal. And UMass consistently, although they shocked Mark and I last week when we picked Central Connecticut State to beat them, the Minutemen were victorious last weekend and were almost victorious over Miami of Ohio. So Red Hawks avoided an 0-4 start to their season, but that game was really ugly, and the way they won it was ugly. So they escaped with a win on homecoming, but wasn't pretty. The bad, I had I had Old Miss. I had Old Miss losing to the Wildcats on a wide left on that final field goal. That was just a bad loss at home, ranked 6 in the country. Taking nothing away from Stoops and the Wildcats. We'll talk about that later. We'll actually talk about it at the end of kind of this first portion. Their defense is legit, but that to me was a prove it game and a game considering what happened later that evening between Bama and Georgia. Ole Miss could have bounced themselves up probably and potentially in the top 5. So that was the bad for me for last weekend. What about you?
I saw him miss that 50-yard, 49-yard field goal. Snap was perfect, and he just pulled it left.
Yeah, complete hook. You could even see it right off his foot. It
Yeah, from the
like you
get.
didn't even have to watch the rest of it. It just his foot just snapped it, and it was ugly. So unfortunate. Feel sorry for the kid, but yeah, bad loss at home.
So there was a lot of bad. It was a lot of bad.
You're
Okie,
full of doom and gloom this week, man. What's wrong with you? Would you?
Okie State came up with a stinker against my boys.
I know.
Right? K State looked. They were okay, but Okie State looks. Okie
Terrible.
State, yeah, they look terrible. Is right, Andy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just disappointing from Gundy. It's a couple big games they should have won. Weekend before they probably should have beat Utah and they didn't, and then they lose to Kansas State. So I thought they were going to be a bit of a sleeper, but I think the Okies I think they're probably done in terms of playoff contention.
But it didn't stop there, Andy. It continued. Utah, no offense, 10 points against Arizona.
Yeah.
They stunk.
Yeah. That was both an L for us, and we both lost that game last week. And I woke up and saw that score, and I was a bit surprised.
Yeah. But
See,
the biggest stinker was one I'm sure you were not happy about, was UCF's debacle against the Buffaloes.
yeah, that was. I thought about that was one of the picks that I thought about after I made the pick and then was editing all this. I thought, yeah, if there was a pick I was going to take back after thinking about it, that was probably it. I just have such a not a distaste, but I'm just not sold on the Buffaloes, and it's not so much like the talent, but it's just the character and some of these things we talked about in the weeks earlier, just the attitude and I don't know. I think I understand, Dion's personality and obviously his accolades and his achievements as a pro, but he hasn't necessarily proved himself in college football just yet in terms of Power Five, and some of the behavior out of his players that I don't know that taints it a bit. So that probably factored into a bit of my pick, which it probably shouldn't because it maybe didn't impact on field performance, but. Yeah, that was it was a good victory on the road against a very good UCF team, undefeated. Matter of fact, I think when they played, and well done by the Buffs.
Yeah.
All right, so let's flip the script. The good. I had a couple here. Actually, I've got three. First off, which we talked about it in the beginning, but Alabama, Georgia, man. National title game in mid-September.
Yeah.
I mean, what as a college football fan, what else could you ask for? 1,000 yards and over 1,000 yards in total offense, 75 points scored, and two game-winning TDs in a span of 2 minutes and an INT in the end zone to end the game. I mean, that's the stuff we wait to see until January in prior seasons, and we're watching it now in mid-September. So that for me, just the game itself and what it represented was a huge one. Next two are
Andy,
yeah,
before you get, I don't want to get off this, but
yeah,
the child shall lead them. 17-year-old Ryan Williams comes of age, 4 dynamic plays, 2 touchdowns, 75-yard bomb to win the game.
yeah. I know, but you also got it. We're now in the era of NIL, and he's at one of the top, if not the most prolific programs, and probably a program that can garner potentially, maybe, yeah. Again, if he stays healthy and continues to improve, arguably first round talent, right? So maybe tough to beat first round money, but I think he can do pretty well staying at Bama an extra year. But yes, at some point he will see his opportunity and go for the payday. But yeah, phenomenal talent. But so that game was a big one for me. Two other quick ones. Back in not necessarily my home state where I was born, but where my wife and family would consider home, back here in Indiana, an hour north of Bloomington. The Hoosiers are 5-0 under Siganetti. 5-0 and a 40% chance. Get this, a 40% chance to make the CFP. Who would have thunk that a year ago? Who would have thunk it 5 weeks ago?
They look like contenders.
I tell you, man, he's got that group singing from the same hymnal and looking out for each other. So Hoosiers, yeah, and then can't go by without recognizing the performance of two of the three service academies so far. Army, Navy, both 4-0. First time that's happened since when, Mark?
1957.
1945.
I was close.
Yes, you were. Yeah. So hey, how about it, man? Great dynamics in college football. So those are my good from performance and the highlights for me for the week. What do
So,
you got?
you got on me and you said I'm gloom and doom. And you said, Mark, you telling me a lot of ugly, a lot of bad. But Andy, there was a lot of good,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I said to you earlier today, if there's 2 words to sum up this week, it's fantastic finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And let's have at it. The Bama game over Georgia was a fantastic finish. The BC game over Western Michigan
Yeah.
was awesome.
That
The
was.
the Kentucky game over Ole Miss was awesome. Central Michigan kicks a field goal with 1 second left to beat San Diego State, and the topper, the Brown Bears,
Yeah. That's
beat
right.
the Harvard
That's
Crimson.
right. That's right. Good stuff, man. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Fantastic weekend. Individual performances from team individuals, offensive players. What who stood out for you in week 5 on the field?
You know, you've been banging this drum every week,
I'm
and
ready to bang it again this week. Go ahead.
and I see it come across the screen, and I don't believe my eyes, Andy. I don't believe my eyes when the guy says
It's true.
26 rushes for 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, is
Yep.
this Marcus Allen? I
That's
mean,
right.
who is this guy?
That's right, man. That's right. Buck and Bronco out there at Boise State.
I mean, you called this 3 weeks ago. You've had him multiple times on your list.
Yeah.
You know, there's chaos going on at UNLV. You know what's happened there with their quarterback.
Yeah.
This guy,
Yeah.
Malik Williams, he steps right up, doesn't miss a beat, 3 touchdowns. They win easily.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Cam Ward that doesn't show any signs of slowing down. If the season ended today, he's probably the Heisman Trophy winner.
Wow. Big call. Big call from Mark. Big call. Yeah, and if the refs had got that call right, he probably wouldn't be. No, I digress. He had great performance. But I've got 2 Heisman hopefuls for me for the week. And boy, if these 2 were sitting at the downtown New York Athletic Club next to the likes of Milroe and Cam Ward, what a story it would be. But yeah, Ashton Genty, running back for Boise State, 5'10", 215, is just tearing it up. I mean, he abused Oregon in week 2 at Autzen. Almost 300 yards rushing. I think it was 4 or 5 tutties. He's just been consistent week after week, and it's hard to see who's going to slow him down out there. And then my second one, Heisman Horvath, QB out at Navy. Another tremendous game down at Alabama Birmingham against the Dragons. He slayed the Dragons for 225 in the air, 2 tutties, and 84 on the ground, and a touchdown. First player since 2016 to have 7 touchdowns passing and 7 touchdowns rushing in the first 4 games of the season. Who's the only other college quarterback to have done that?
Michael Vick.
Close, very similar game. Current NFL quarterback. Played Monday night or Sunday night. Bills Ravens.
Lamar Jackson.
Yep, Lamar Jackson of Louisville, 2016. So quite the performance by Horvath there, and we'll see if he can keep it going. So those 2 were my offensive players. How about on the defensive side of the ball? Any teams or individual performances stood out to you, Mark?
You know, Andy, we've been struggling week after week of trying to find this dominant defensive player. You know, we've even tweaked the lineup to include teams because week after week, these powerhouse teams are pitching shutouts. We talked about the defense of Kentucky and what a great defensive game they played against Ole Miss. But there was a one-man wrecking crew this week. And it was in that BC game that I talked about as you're there. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this gentleman's name correctly.
Uh-huh.
Forgive me if I don't. It's Donovan Izaroku.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 14 tackles, 10 solo, 4 assisted, 3 sacks, and forced the fumble from, I think, the defensive end position.
Wow. Dominant.
Yeah.
On BC for BC?
For BC.
Yeah, wow. Nice. To put that one on the list. Good stuff, man. Well, I took a team, and we'll go back to the opener, but Kentucky's defense is for real, man. They're legit. They're legit. They've shut down Carson Beck, ETN,
Yep.
that Georgia offense, who put up 34 on Bama, by the way. They held Georgia to 13 points, and I believe Ole Miss only scored 17. So they've held both of those teams prior to the loss, the number 2 and the number 6 team in the country, to 30 points, right? Jackson Dart threw for 261 on Saturday. Prior to that, he was averaging nearly 400 yards a game, and he threw 1 TD, and he was averaging 3 a game. So I think Kentucky's defense did not just they didn't punch above their weight a couple weeks ago against Georgia at home. I think they are for real. We'll see how they fare, but that's who I had from a team standpoint. And top defenses through week 5. And there's a number of different ways to measure it, but I want to take a gander at who's number 1, and it's not Kentucky. But we talk a lot about this team's offense, in particular their quarterback. Freshman quarterback, Nico.
Tennessee
Yeah.
is the number 1 defensive team in the nation.
Giving up 3.13 yards a play, 700 yards of total offense against them so far.
Wow, I would have never guessed.
Yeah, Buckeyes at 2. Not surprising, Mizzou at number 3. Penn State, Minnesota, and you got Texas at 6. Got one of your favorites, one of your MAC favorites at number 7, the Huskies from NIU. Indiana, we just talked about them. They're putting up points. I don't know what they're averaging on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm going to guess it's between 35 and 40, if not over 40 a game. They're number 8, Kentucky 9, Washington 10. So, interestingly, a number of Big Ten teams. Now, style of play, types of offenses they're playing against probably factors into the defensive side of the ball, but nonetheless, some pretty some big names there, and we'll see with some of those. IU in particular, Texas dangerous. Texas with number 6 defense, and they have Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers on the offensive side of the ball.
They didn't look so great against State.
Yeah.
State 5 touchdown underdog, and it was 35-7.
Yeah. They probably let off the gas a bit.
Yeah.
So, all right.
That leads us to our next segment for Hot Topics, right?
Yeah. Let's roll contenders, pretenders, and let's bring the wacky world of football up, and then we'll save our kind of feature topic for the last one prior to going into pick. So first up, Mark, contenders, pretenders. What's your thought? We're about getting to halfway through the season here. Have seen enough games, probably not enough conference games yet, but we've really the first weekend was this weekend, so probably a few more to go. But at this stage of the game, who's for real, who's not?
Well, I guess you have your powerhouses, you have your majors, and then you have the mid-major, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the powerhouse side, you gotta think Bama's for real, right? The way that they've been playing, they could win a national championship this year.
The way they look Saturday night, brother, absolutely.
On the major side, there's so many different conferences, but I gotta say, I'm surprised, and I'm pleasantly surprised with BYU.
Yeah.
Right? They're undefeated. I think they could make the playoff. They're in a big conference. And from a mid-major perspective, how can you rule out UNLV or Boise State as contenders? Yeah,
absolutely. I think those are all good names. I would have put I guess BYU is in the major. I lumped them maybe a bit, not maybe top tier mid major, but I guess they are in the major conference. But that's a good name. I did not have that one, although certainly recognize their performance. I think they're also remain undefeated, right?
Yes, We
Yeah.
talked about that today. You had shot me that list of undefeated teams and
Yeah, that's right.
surprises.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, from a contender standpoint, on the powerhouse side, I think, you know, most of mine, bar one, are from the SEC, right? Bama, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. I think all four of those teams are playoff bound unless they step on multiple rakes. And then the Canes, you got to put Miami in there. They're playing good ball right now, even though um, I had my view on that call. They're still undefeated, and big game this week heading out to Cal. Uh, some of the others, major conferences, which I kind of lumped in, I had SEC so far, which is usually the case, but as you look at it now, is clearly seems to be the power conference. But Ohio State, another name that has popped up that our boy Steve Pinkston there. Another shout out to one of our weekly listeners, one of our uh, religious listeners and Sensei fans. Multiple shout outs on Steve's shotgun of the week, we'll call it. Steve may be a guest in the future. Good friend, good passionate football fan. But the Cyclones, Iowa State, man, they're undefeated and they've kind of done that sneakily. They haven't really been on the radar with that. So I had Iowa State in there, and then some of these other teams, mid majors and the G5, I guess they're called, the Group of Five, but can't count out Army or Navy at this point. James Madison, we talked about, and Liberty, right? And I had Boise State in that kind of last group too. So all five of those teams, if they keep playing and winning out, that'll be a battle for spots 11 and 12 potentially in the playoff. So
It could be. It could be. I do like that Iowa State team, and if you do remember, that was my
yeah,
upset special week 2 over
yeah,
Iowa.
yeah. Steve reminds me of that regularly. He's a big fan of yours, and
Really?
he
Good
still
man.
still still hasn't forgiven me. So yeah, we'll have to have him on, and you can continue the love fests with him when he comes on. But good stuff. But and pretenders, any particular teams that maybe the record doesn't really reflect where they'll end up at the end of the season.
Well, from a powerhouse perspective, I think LSU is a pretender. They don't go anywhere. They're overrated. They barely beat my South Carolina team. They shouldn't have won that game. Even the games afterwards, I'm not a big believer in LSU. Um, that's from the powerhouse side. From the major conference, I think Clemson is not who we think they are. I know they got a big game coming up this week.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't think Notre Dame is going to make the playoff either.
Yeah. I would disagree with you on making the playoff. I think they will make the playoff. It's the classic case. I mean, just a one loss, maybe even a 2-loss, but a 1-loss Notre Dame team, you can't keep them out of the playoff. However, I think they will be an early exit first round if they get in at 9.
They have 2 losses, Andy.
What's that?
They have 2 losses.
No, they've only lost once.
They lost to Louisville this week. Oh, Louisville
No,
they beat Louisville.
no.
I had that game. That's
Yeah,
right.
Notre Dame beat them. So they just lost to Northern Illinois. They still have some tough contests left. I think the Navy Notre Dame game, which is in a few weeks, typically Notre Dame last year they routed them over in Ireland. But that game ought to be
is that game? Is that game at home?
It's up by you, man. It's up in the Meadowlands, playing at Giant Stadium, I believe.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to make a trip south to go check that one out in person.
That should be a game that we do a road show from, man.
No? Maybe. We'll see.
We gotta talk about that.
I've been to that stadium, man. I'm not a big fan.
So my mid-major pretender is someone that you think is up and coming, and it's James Madison.
They're for real, dude. They're for real.
I don't think they're for real. I'm saying they're a pretender.
Hey, did you obviously forgot everything about last college football season? Go back and read all the articles and listen to the debates last December. James Madison was, in many people's eyes, they were ineligible for a bowl. Now, to be in the Final Four, no. but to be in a New Year's Six bowl, they should have. But I believe you have to fact check me on this, but I believe last year was their first year of being a Division I football program in the FBS.
Yes.
And you're not eligible for I don't know if it's just the New Year's Six bowl or any bowl game, but I believe it's one of the top bowls. They were ineligible. And there was a bunch of controversy because they were darn good last year.
They
And the
were.
fact that they're undefeated now, that if you're that good, I don't know what their record is and call it the last, 16, 17 games. But my guess is they haven't lost more than 2 games in the last 17. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So I'll call your bluff on that one.
So who are your pretenders, Andy?
I think Mizzou. I'm not convinced on Missouri. Defense is good, but I just don't think they'll have enough on the offensive side of the ball. I got to say it, even despite my earlier Colorado. Colorado's going to have to beat one or two of the stalwarts, and I don't know who the biggest game on their schedule is this year, but they're going to have to knock off one or two big names for me to be a real believer. They are 4-1, I think, is their record right now after beating UCF, but still questions remain for them. And then Notre Dame, like I said earlier, and then mid majors. I'm going to go. I still have. I've got questions around UNLV, despite the fact that they're undefeated. Quarterback did come in, didn't miss a beat, maintain that streak, but I just don't. Last year they were similar going into about, I don't know, I call it maybe week 7 or 8. Very similar. I don't know. They had one loss, but and they just tripped up on 2 or 3 games that they should have won fairly handily. So UNLV is probably who I put in that group. So, all right. Speaking of UNLV, wacky world of college football, you want to tell us about Mountain West and potential to join the Pac-12 and what's going on out west with conference realignment there?
I don't know if it's going to happen, Andy. I know UNLV, Air Force have decided to remain in the Mountain West. And I think the Mountain West is doing everything in their power.
Absolutely.
Right, including creating this re-signing bonus to keep teams from a retention perspective. And it's the wacky world.
I know. It's the world we're living in, man. They don't want to go down to they don't want to become the next Tupac. Right, they don't want to be the remaining the conference with 2 teams, right? And then Memphis was another one. Memphis was another one that had an offer to go to the Pac-12 as well, too, right?
They did. The Memphis AD said the Pac-12 membership offer was not a good deal, and they've reaffirmed their commitment to the AAC. And Andy, this is just anti-poaching measures to try to keep the conferences somewhat intact, so that they can figure out the path ahead.
Yeah. I'm have to say I'm rooting a bit for the Pac-12 to find a way to reemerge.
Me
just
too.
Just for a couple of reasons. It's the Pac-12, man.
Yeah.
It's been around forever. And it'd be pretty cool to see the Phoenix rise from the ashes. Everybody left them for dead at the end of last year and bolted, and you got 2 teams left, and it'd be pretty cool to see 12 teams somehow get realigned and the Pac-12 back on the map. So I hope they continue after it, and quietly cheering for them to get that done. So I think it'd be good for college football.
Me too.
All right. So, all right, folks. Well, we've been gabbing for quite a bit now. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get to our last segment of Hot Topics of the Week. And Mark and I are going to talk about the best drip in the game. We're going to talk unis, some of our favorite uniforms that folks suit up for, the team suit up for, and hit the field. So we're going to talk that here in a bit. So give us a few secs, take a break, and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, Saturday Sensei, in the week 6 here. Again, thanks for everybody tuning in, listening, watching, whatever you may be doing. We really appreciate it. Again, you can find us YouTube, Apple Podcast, iHeart, Spotify, Sirius, Pandora, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate those channels carrying us, and we're hoping you tune in. So we're back. We're going to talk about the top on-field drip in the game. Mark, top three unis for each of us, and what we think looks the best on Saturday. So I'm gonna start with you. Who's your number one?
The number one for me is Penn State.
Wow.
They they are the Yankees of college football.
Coming from a Mets fan, folks.
What
Coming from a Mets fan.
what does that mean? That means it's a classic pinstripe, old school uniform.
Never goes out of date. Never
That's
goes out of date.
that's exactly right, Andy. So whether it's the whiteout that you saw against Illinois on Saturday night, or this black and white that you have with the white helmet and the black strip, or navy, dark blue, this is classic stuff that is just reminiscent of the way college football should be, is, and should not change. So
Yeah, very simple.
Yeah,
Very, very simple, and it's instantly recognizable.
yeah.
Right, instantly recognizable. So it definitely carries that that cachet for sure. I had my number one, which going back a long way. It's tough to not put Michigan in that top spot. Again, another uniform, particularly the navy blue on yellow, the yellow pants, the navy blue jersey, the striped helmet, the traditional home uniform for the Wolverines. It's just tough to get past that not being right up there, and I think it's right up there with Penn State. Again, mostly it's the helmet, right? That's instantly recognizable for that, but it's just clean, and projects an image of strength, dependability, durability, and just screams Michigan. So that's who I'd have to put in the top spot. So even though I've got probably one of my favorite, the team I pull for the most on Saturdays on my list, but I think you have Michigan the nod. Talk about your other two that you had on your list, Mark.
Well, I think Michigan's got that iconic helmet, and
Yeah.
the maize in the blue.
Yeah.
Just scream college football and scream tradition. So I love it.
Good work. Yeah.
I love it. For me, I took a 180 turn and I said, you know what? What's not classic? What's not traditional? And what's fun? What's ever changing? What's fluid? What's dynamic? What will they wear next?
That's right. That's right.
And that to me is what Oregon and Phil Knight is all about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You gotta love it. I think it's 50 some odd uniform combinations, and however that partnership or that idea started is just whoever came up with it is ingenious, for both the university and for Nike. I'm always interested. I need to do some research, but what happens when the game's over with all the uniforms that they wear one time, maybe ever, or they're wearing them once every 5 years? They sell them off, or wonder what they're doing with them. Are there teams down in the Congo that are running around?
Mexico, South America, and I'm sure he's donating them all over the globe.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, you can't. You gotta love the Ducks. On that kind of similar vein of alternate uniforms, I have to say, despite the fact they lost, but those old Miss uniforms on Saturday, man, were that powder blue was just pretty, man. Just that color combo, the powder blue, the white, the red script letters. I mean, just that's artwork at its finest, and I thought it looked great on TV, and I imagine it looked even better in person. I'm not a big fan of the traditional unis, the darker blue that they wear, and then they've got an alternate white that I was going back and forth with. That white super clean, but the powder blue just looked fantastic on the screen, and I just couldn't get past it. So that Old Miss up there on my list.
I loved it, and Andy, maybe we got to go to Oxford.
Yeah, I think down to the SIP they call it.
That's right. That's what it was. and I can see the two of us sitting in the student section and taking it all in.
Yeah. Well, who was your final? What was the final uni you had up there?
I went back to the classics and the Earl Campbell days and that
Yeah.
Texas, that burnt orange and the white and the clean look of it, and it's just a regal look for me that
Mm.
just screams college football. And I like the Texas, the white and the white and the burnt orange.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that is a classic, and I'm a huge fan of those home unis. Yeah, that burnt orange is a nice clash with the white, and I think, like you said, for maybe I like the word regal. That's a good term. It's probably not as mainstream as Penn State, Michigan. Now, perhaps we're a bit biased, maybe just because we've grown up around those teams and followed them. But I'm sure down in the South and in the former Big 12 and now the SEC that folks have put Texas right up there with those other two, and be hard to argue with them. Whenever I see that picture, and when I think about Texas football, great call too, by the way, with Earl Campbell, man, legend, one of my favorite running backs with the former Houston Oilers when I was a kid. Just ran like a machine, man, just a
It's a bull.
beast. Oh
He
yeah,
was
a
a bull.
beast. Just those images of his jersey getting ripped off. I mean, he's just hammered. I miss those.
Heisman Trophy winner at
Yeah,
Texas.
I know. I miss those days. But yeah, so I put the last one I had on my list. I'd stick it in that same kind of regal category, and it was again hard for me to not just because they're. I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Trojans, given the time I spent there and got to watch them in person under Pete Carroll and probably their heyday over the last 30 plus years. But the Cardinal and Gold home unis for USC are again, I put them in the very similar category to Michigan, Penn State, Texas, right? Classic, instantly recognizable, and I just think they look fantastic. So I had USC rounding out my top three.
Andy, I saw a great 30-30 the other day. You got to look at it, called The Trojan War.
Yep, I've watched it.
Oh, you have it. And it's all about the Pete Carroll
Yeah,
era and how
yeah,
he resurrected the program and
amazing.
brought them back to dominance. And just a great show.
Yeah, and all the way around, not just not just the on-field program, but the entire program in the community with the university. Just really put it on the map. It was
Yeah.
a fun time to be around for sure. Exciting and electric. So there you have it, folks. The New York City kids got Penn State, Oregon, and Texas, and the Sensei here back in the Midwest has Michigan, Ole Miss, and USC topping out the best drip on the field. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're coming right back to the meat of each week, and that is our games of the week and a bit of a recap of last week. So stay tuned. We'll be back. We're back at it, folks. We're back into week 6. We are through 5 so far. Well, Mark, congratulations. First week being victorious over yours truly. You had a good week last week, my friend. 10-6 last week, put you to 50-28 on the season. I did talk about last week as we were making the pick. I am a big believer in statistics, love the data, love the science, and mean reversion is a thing. And yours truly has experienced that his last 2 weeks. Last week I went 9-7, I believe, and this week I'm at an even 500 at 8-8, puts me at 53-25 on the season. And again, folks, we're picking winners and losers. That's it. So if you're a money line guy or gal, then I guess you can take it to the bank for whatever you think it's worth. But that's where we stand. So congratulations, good week last week, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Good week.
Good picks, some good picks, man. So all right, let's get into it. Let's get into week 6. We're kicking off, folks. Michigan traveling out west to the far northwest, the Puget Sound, taking on the Huskies from Washington. What do you think, Mark?
I was shocked Michigan played well this week. Um, I think they're going to beat Michigan. I think they're going to beat Washington on the road. I like Michigan this week.
Yeah, you know what? really interesting. I will look it up quickly if I can. The patience of our listeners there, but trying to check and see what the spread was because I believe, and again, we're not picking against spread, we're picking the winners and losers, but um, I believe that this spread was a lot tighter than folks were anticipating. And Washington in their defense, I talked about the top 10 defenses so far. Um, Washington's got the 10th ranked defense. Yeah, this game, if you are a point spread type of person, the Huskies are giving up 2 points. Michigan's getting 2 points at Washington, which I find very, very surprising. I'm with you, Mark. I think Michigan, I think they're starting to figure out their personality. They're going back to old school Big Ten smash mouth between the tackles football, keeping Orgy in the game, Khalil Mullings in the backfield, along with Edwards. And I think they continue to roll. So I'm with you. I think Michigan gets it done out of Washington. So next, another Big Ten clash, Big Ten matchup. We got the Hawkeyes rolling into with a horseshoe taking on the Buckeyes. Probably the first big reasonable test for the Buckeyes so far this season. Hawkeyes have had a few challenges, so we'll see how this game goes. But what do you think here, Mark?
Iowa just doesn't have the firepower, Andy. And, as much as we talked about Ryan Williams, there's a gentleman named Jeremiah Smith. And if you saw last week, he had an Odell Beckham catch with one hand. This kid's a diaper dandy. He's a fabulous freshman, and he's only going to get better. I think Ohio State romps him.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think this game is Ohio State's heavily favored in this game. I think it's going to be closer than what the experts think. However, just in terms of their performance overall and just where the Buckeyes stand from an offensive standpoint, their offense is very highly ranked overall, and their defense is solid too. So I think the Buckeyes have too much firepower on both sides of the ball. Ohio State gets it done at home. So we have 2 for 2 there. Next one, interesting matchup here. I think maybe a little less interesting given the Huskers' performance against Illinois 2 weeks ago, and then against Purdue. They looked really lackluster too last weekend against Purdue of all teams. But Rutgers traveling to Lincoln, take on Nebraska. What do you think here? It's going to be a really good game.
It's going to be a great game, Andy. I'm actually going to watch this game. It's a regional game for me. I get it here in the Northeast. Rutgers, Greg Schiano, who comes from the Ohio State coaching tree, has done a wonderful job. This is his second go round with Rutgers. He had gotten this program into the top 10. He left to then coach the Tampa Bay Bucks, back to Ohio State, and then back to Rutgers for a second go round. And he's got this recruits all not going to Penn State, and they're staying local. Nebraska, I love the coach. You've pointed it out. He's rebuilding this program. This, to me, is a toss-up. I'm going to go with Rutgers.
Wow, you're going with Rutgers on the road, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this, like I said, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Huskers, I think, are favored at home, I think by a touchdown. Boy, I'm with you, man. I'm going to go with Rutgers. I just think they've got, is it Kyle, I think Maggiano is running back or Monangai. Sorry about that. But running back for Rutgers, one of the leading backs in the country, one of the better backs in the Big Ten. And, I'm with you. I think Schiano's got, last year there were some predictions that this year's performance, people were maybe expecting to see it last year, but I think he's getting it dialed in, and I like Rutgers on the road, man. It's a good call. Another Big Ten matchup, which wouldn't have been one last year, but Bruins heading across the country to Happy Valley to take on the Nittany Lions.
I love my boys. I think they're going to have a good year. Will they win a national championship? Probably not. Will they get into the playoff? I should think so. Game at home this time of the year against a California team, no brainer. Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I'm with you. Penn State. Penn State wins handily. Another Big Ten matchup in the lineup. We got Trojans heading up north to Minnesota, taking on the Golden Gophers.
No. Is that the next game?
Oh, next game. Sorry, we skipped ahead a few. Sorry about that. You're right. I skipped ahead on my tracking sheet here. Next game. Next game. The game is in there, folks. Don't worry. We'll get to it. I was just a little excited. Next one, Old Miss coming off that tough loss at home to Kentucky, heading out to your USC Gamecocks out there in South Carolina. Again, another could be another good matchup, and Old Miss better get it together, man.
You know, Andy, I've been touting South Carolina all year, and they should have beat LSU. Their quarterback went down. Their backup quarterback is the old Auburn quarterback that can't throw to save his life, and they're just a mess, and they can't get it done. They just don't have enough on offense. They have a great defense. You talked about defensive teams. I'm shocked South Carolina was not one of them, but I guess statistically they're just not there yet. If Ole Miss doesn't win this game, they don't find themselves in the playoff. Old Lane better pull some tricks out of his down his sleeve, and you know what? So
it's PG rated, folks. So PG rated, we're all good.
So I got Coach Kiff.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And the running Rebels, baby.
Yeah, I think running Rebs. I think they run all over South Carolina. Ole Miss bounces back, keeps their playoff hopes alive, and also potential national championship hopes alive as well too. So Ole Miss. All right, next one. Now we'll go out to the left coast a bit. Colorado State heading out to Oregon State, taking on the Beavers. Interesting matchup here.
Yeah, the Rams against the Beavers.
Yeah.
It's the classic mountain to the river.
Yeah.
I like the Beavers. Beavers at home.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going Oregon State. I think they're again a bit of a quiet threat out there. They did lose to Oregon, but that game was competitive, was closer than I think some thought. But yeah, I'm going to take Oregon State at home in this one. So. All right, now we'll get to the game we jumped to earlier. Trojans heading to Minnesota to take on the Golden Gophers. Another Big Ten matchup. Mark, what do you think here?
I think the Trojans get it done. They're on a roll, and this will get them kick-started to maybe start to pull away. I like the Trojans.
Yeah, it's interesting. This team, they are a bit reminiscent of, I can't remember what year, but under Carroll. I don't know if it was in... It was 2002 or 3, but they were notorious for being a second half football team. So they would go out, be flat, get behind, look awful in the first half, and then they'd go in at halftime, and both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, they would make adjustments, and they would just come out and dominate the second half. Exactly what they did against Michigan, although they lost that game. Should have won the game. Khalil Mullings broke 3 tackles and rumbled for 70 yards, but that's done and in the books. And then last week, they were losing to Wisconsin, the Badgers, less than stellar team, 21-10 at halftime. They came back in the second half and scored 28 unanswered points, 28-0 in the second half. So I think Trojans find a way to get it done. May not be pretty end to end, but I think they get it done over Minnesota at home. So you and I are on the same page on everything so far. So interesting trend. Next, we got Jayhawks heading out to the Southwest, Tempe. Hopefully they don't get out there too early and party a bit with the Sun Devil crowd. But what do you got in the Jayhawks taking on the Sun Devils, Mark?
Rock chalk, my friend. Rock chalk.
Whoa. Okay.
Yep, on the road.
Okay. Well, that's where we split up for the first time. I'm taking ASU at home in that game. I think not sure the Jayhawks have it all together this year, and on the road, I think ASU's been pretty competent at home, and I think they continue that. So I'm going with the Sun Devils. Next one, big matchup here, Big 12 matchup. Baylor traveling into Ames, Iowa. Party Central. Iowa State Cyclones taking on the Baylor Bears. What do you think here?
Cyclones.
Yeah, I think Cyclones stay undefeated. I think they handle Baylor. I don't know about easily, given the way they won last week. I would have figured they would have beat Houston by a bit more than 20 points and a bit more convincingly, but I still have, for my boy Steve, we'll take the Cyclones in this one over Baylor. So good one. All right, next one. We've got our kind of mid-major game of the week, if you will, but we've got James Madison taking on University of Lafayette Monroe, ULM. What do you think here, Mark?
Andy, you've been touting James Madison the whole show, and I saw ULM lose to Texas a couple weeks ago. I got to go with JMU.
There we go. Jump on the bandwagon, my friend. Love it. Love it. I'm taking JMU as well. I think James Madison's for real, and I think they handle John David Booty, the general, and ULM handily. So next game, this one I'm really looking forward to this game, right? So Rutgers, Nebraska, in this game in particular, I think is going to be a battle. And I don't, it'll be interesting to see what the experts talk about, pontificate on the rest of the week. But Tennessee rolling into Little Rock to take on Arkansas. I think it's going to be a great matchup, man.
Listen, Tennessee beat Oklahoma in Oklahoma. Not that Oklahoma is all that we thought they were. This kid Nico is coming of age. Arkansas is a hell of a team. It's going to be a great battle. I got to go with Tennessee.
Now you're going with the Vols, huh?
Yep.
Going with the Vols. Well, we talked about it earlier. We talked about the offense of Tennessee. We talked about the defense being statistically ranked sixth in the country, right? Which is strong. Oftentimes, kind of regardless of the sport, but defense wins championships, as they say. I think this is going to be a tight game. My heart wants to take the Razorbacks, but the logical side in me, and that's the role I serve in this duo. I'm going to have to go with the Vols, but I think it is going to be a very close game. So I think Tennessee does get it done on the road, but do not be surprised to see a game similar to what we saw with Bama and Georgia. Maybe not as convincingly of a lead and a head start for the Razorbacks in the beginning of the game, but I think Tennessee's going to have to fight their way back into this one. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I hope it doesn't disappoint. Speaking of Bama, we got the Tide rolling into Vandy, and boy, Vandy has they've stood up for big games this year. That's another one that I think could be closer than the experts believe. I've got to go with Bama after the performance last week, and particularly Milroe looked great in the pocket and throwing the ball, and obviously has got the legs in the running game. So they'll be too much for Vandy, but I would like to see Vandy put up a fight. It would be kind of nice, but I think Bama takes this one.
Too much talent, too much depth, too many athletes, my friend. Roll Tide.
Yeah. All right. Next, we've got one of the top defenses in the country, as we referenced earlier. I think third in the country, just behind Ohio State. But Missouri and the Tigers heading into College Station to take on Texas A&M. What do you think here, Mark?
This is a tough game, Andy. This is the.
I know you love you some A&M, man. You just can't get off of them.
They've disappointed me too much, Andy. They're not the team we thought they were. They've just come back the last week or so. I just don't trust them. Missouri's got this defense that travels. I'm going with Mizzou.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you hit it on the head, man. Defenses and defensive lines that play well. I think they get it done. Mizzou over Texas A&M. All right, coming down to the final two matchups for the week. Another game that I'm going to put in the same bucket as Tennessee and Arkansas. I think this is a very interesting matchup. So we've got the Canes hopping on a plane from the deep south of Florida and flying all the way out to Northern California, right? So this new dynamic conference realignment, and we've got Miami going the other way, right? And Miami had a very, very close, about as close as you can get in terms of a scare last weekend against Virginia Tech. They did escape. Now, the interesting thing here, the dynamic that I will be very interested to see how Miami overcomes. This game is a night game. It's a 7:30 start on the West Coast, meaning it will be 10:30 in the evening when the game kicks off for the Hurricanes. So it'll be interesting to see how they're doing week prep. If they are flying out on Friday, there will be no doubt that it will have an impact on the game. Is it enough to have the Bears take down the Canes? I don't think so. I'm going with Miami in this game. But if I were going to pick an upset special of the week, this would be the game, and I would take the Bears at home. But for the record and for the video and for our official stats, I'm going to go with the Canes on this one.
Andy, big game, big players. Cam Ward comes to play, solidifies his Heisman Trophy candidacy. Miami all the way.
Yeah, wow. Okay. All right, folks. Well, we are nearing the end of another week. Our final game, the big game, the T-shirt reveal game of the week, as patented by my co-host out there in New York City. Great matchup, man. First game for both of these teams in the Commander's Trophy battle. We've got Navy traveling out to Colorado Springs to take on the Falcons from the United States Air Force Academy. Last year, I went to Navy Marine Corps Annapolis, and I saw the Fighting Falcons, who, ironically enough, were in the same position Navy is in about 2 weeks earlier this year than last year. Air Force was undefeated. They came in relatively handled Navy, although the score wouldn't reflect that. I think it ended up they won by 10, but it wasn't really that close in person. Air Force does not have that team this year. Navy does have the team. Heisman Horvath keeps it rolling. Midshipmen head out to Colorado Springs. I'm taking Navy, and I think they beat Air Force, and Navy goes to 5-0 on the season. What do you got, my friend?
I want you to track where I've been for these T-shirt reveals and what that is, and maybe we'll do that midway through the season to get a feel for how I've been. But to me, this is a no-brainer, my friend. This is the Midshipmen.
That's right. That's good, man. That's good. I told you if you pick correctly, you'd come back next week. If you didn't, you were out. New co-host. No, I think it should be a great game, and it's really exciting to see Navy and what they're doing this year. But hey, just like with any rivalry, when two teams face off, you never know what's going to happen. And as my father always says, it's why they play the game, folks. So again, thank you for joining us, everybody. We again appreciate you listening, chiming in, sharing your comments on our Insta page, X, texting, sharing the passion. Keep spreading the word of Saturday Sensei. If you want to pay it forward, give somebody a little Saturday Sensei in their life, and on a Saturday. And we will catch you all same time, same place next week. Take care.